You're listening to the best of the Ray Powers Hour.
This is the Ray Powers Hour. I am back, and on the line, I have a true rock and roll icon, and that's not hype. Cyndi Dawson, lead singer of the Cynz. How you doing tonight?
Hi, Ray. Thank you for that.
Well, thanks for being here. I've been looking forward to this for a while, and, I'm dying to come back and see a show. I've been so just over my head with everything, and now with a record coming out, it's just been insane. But we're going to connect, and I want to experience one of your shows because people, a Cynz show, it's the penultimate. You got to see it.
Thanks. I can't wait for you to come to the show because we love doing live shows. That's where we really get our yayas out. So it's so delighted for you to come to a live show and just feel what goes on there. The audience is so incredible.
Yeah, I'm long overdue. And, you've been a fixture on the New York, New Jersey, really tri-state scene for quite a couple of years now. It's been like 6 or 7 years now, right, with this band?
Yeah, 6 years. Okay. Exactly.
In fact, you've been called the closest thing to a 70s CBGB band, as far as anything from this decade. And I'm paraphrasing, of course, but that immediately conjures up the perfect image. And I think, it describes the Cynz to a T. I mean, now, was that by design, or do you feel that just kind of happened?
I think it's a little bit of both, because our influences, the band is essentially Henry Cynz and myself, and then we have people who play with us.
Sure.
That still pop in once in a while, and we have new people playing with us, relatively new. We kind of call it the Cynz family, but essentially the band is myself and Henry Cynz, and he played in a lot of bands. I've known him most of my life, and so he's played in a lot of bands from the 70s on, and so his influences are like, real rock and roll, like that, New York style rock and roll. And I was big into like television.
Oh, yeah.
And early Blondie, Patti Smith, Jim Carroll. I worked in a rock and roll club back in the day when a lot of those bands would come and play at the club. So my coming up years were heavily influenced by that sound. So I think what happens is that everybody sort of that's in a band has to be influenced by those great years of their life when music was such a huge part of all your early experiences, and you're falling in love and you're going out to clubs for the first time. You can't help but have that in your brain somewhere. But then I think that we also brought something original of our own to it. So it's that mix of our influences and our own, innate styles.
Sure. And I just missed that period, like, the late 70s when the Ramones were just ready to take over the world.
Me too. I was too young, really, in those years to go to those clubs. But I was in New York because I was modeling really, really young for this artist in Soho, and I got really wrapped up in that whole Soho art scene when Keith Haring was around and all those really, and Beth Scott and all those artists. But so I was on on the what do they call it, the outskirts of that scene.
Right.
It wasn't until the 80s when I started bartending and I was working in a rock club that I really started to get to hear some of these bands, like, really, really listen to them and get to know who some of these bands were. So I'm a little bit late to the game, technically, but the influences were my first influences.
Sure. And, that brought about the formation of the Cynz. I mean, in the end, those influences, what you listen to, you go, wow, I want to do this. You go see the Ramones at CB's and it's like, yeah, this just goes to show you that 4 kids with guitars and an attitude can do this. You don't have to be a virtuoso. If you have the attitude, you have the chops, you've got the charisma, you can be a band and you can go out and you can take over the world.
That's absolutely spot on, because I was never a singer, and that's why I was a poet. I always wrote poetry, but I was always told I couldn't sing. So I literally had a rock band for years, and I did poetry with the rock band playing, behind me. And even with Henry, that's how we started out writing things together where he would be the music behind my poetry.
Right.
And so, but the attitude, my poetry was always very punk, and it was always very rough, and I always had attitude. But Henry said to me one day, "Why don't you just try singing?" And I literally laughed at him. I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" And he said, "No, I'm not kidding. Why don't you just try singing?" And I wouldn't even let him look at me. I made him turn his back and look at the wall, and because.
Oh yeah.
Unfortunately, because I was an actress when I was younger, and so the kind of singing that where they told me I couldn't sing would be like stage singing, for Broadway and all that. And so, but it got in my head that I couldn't sing. And when people tell you when you're young that you can't do something,
oh sure, that sets you up.
You'll believe them,
of course.
You'll believe them. But I think attitude is more important even than the actual technical talent, because you can overcome that.
Yeah,
you can overcome the technical talent, and you can create a style of your own, and that's what I had to do.
Right, that attitude forms your confidence, and that's what's going to get you over.
Oh yeah, at one point I think I had one of those, Oprah aha moments where I just said, I'm not Celine Dion. I'm not a singer. I'm a rock and roll singer. I can belt it out. I can scream it out because my songs are personal. I'm the only one that knows really what those words came from. So, people can relate to the words from their own experience, but when I'm singing them, I know what was going on in my life when I wrote them. And so when I sing, those words, it's the emotion that's coming out. And then I just had this aha moment where I realized that, I got to do it my own way, and then nobody else will sound like me, and nobody else will be able to tell me I'm not doing it right or wrong because it's my own thing.
It was a punk rock epiphany. It was perfect.
Yeah.
Well, this is the Ray Powers Hour. I am on the line with lead singer of the Cynz, Cyndi Dawson. Now, you mentioned that you write the lyrics almost exclusively. Henry comes in, brings the music. Now, I know no two ideas are ever born the same way, but do you have a writing pattern where you kind of notice that, hey, this is a pretty good system, and you know that most ideas are going to stick? Do you guys have any kind of, just, I guess not even a ritual, just you bring lyrics to him, or does he come up with a riff to you, or does it vary from song to song?
It's funny because we do get asked that question a lot, and I wish I had an easy answer for you, but
I understand.
For the most part, I write the lyrics, but there are times when Henry pops out with an idea or thinks of two. He's got this thing about syllables, and I'm a poet. I can jumble words in my mouth. I know how to make them fit. So we have one problem area where he'll say, "That's too wordy." I'm like, "No, I can do this."
Exactly.
And they always end up being able to do it. But Henry jumps in sometimes and does contribute to the lyrics. And I also, being a non-musician over the last 6 years, I have, he always says I think like a musician. I've been able to actually come up with musical ideas. But sometimes I'll have something already written, and I'll say, let me hear some of the riffs that you've come up with and see what fits. But then there's times when he plays something that's so good, and I'm like, just keep playing that. I'm going to write while you're playing that. And I'll write a song right on the spot while he's playing this riff over and over. And then we'll just work it through together. I'll say, well, you know what, let's come up with a chorus, and can you do this, and can you do that? And he'll say, oh, well, why don't we try it this way? But there's no real method to our madness. It just kind of, it's like alchemy.
Yeah.
And it sort of magically happens.
Yeah, you've got the chemistry, and I guess no matter where you are or who comes up with what, it's going to be a Cynz song, because it's that, as you said, it's that magic between you and Henry, and it's unique to the two of you.
I do write real easily with him, and I write better with him than I've ever done with other musicians I've worked with. But I think there's the reason for that is because other musicians look at me like a non-musician.
Right.
And they're just like, well, you let us do the music and you just handle the words. And with Henry, he always said, you think more like a musician than a lot of musicians I know. And he gave me that confidence to feel that I could open my mouth and contribute musically. Henry is incredible at harmonies. But he's taught me so much about harmony over the years that now sometimes I can actually come up with an idea for harmony. So it's been an education for me, but I don't think I would have had that education if he didn't have that confidence in me.
Sure. And if you're cutting melodies, guess what? You're musical. I mean,
Well, in my brain, I'm very musical. But if you put a guitar in my hands, and nobody believes this until they do it to me, but if you put a guitar in my hand and you showed me, as I say, a C note,
right.
You made me do it over and over and over, and then you took the guitar away and came back a half an hour later and said, now show me the C note. I can't do it. I can't remember what it sounded like or where it goes. I have to voice record all my musical ideas immediately, right, so I don't forget them.
Well, there's a lot of people in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame who have to do that. It's like, give me an F. It's like, I'm one of the few people around I know with perfect pitch, and you're born with it. You can't teach it. So it's, it's not one of those things where it's, you're just not doing your part. It's in your brain. Your brain, you think more linear as far as lyrics go and everything else. And, we all have our thing,
Yeah, it's true. I think it's a gift that you're born with, because right. The artist, Renee, that I work with, and I still work with to this day, at the time he was doing a cover for a poetry book that I was working on. And I remember saying to him, he said to me, what do you see for the cover? I said, well, I see like this tree stump growing out from the ground, and then it becomes like this woman as it goes closer to the sky. And the woman's arms are like tree limbs, and then, it's like just this whole cycle of life thing. And he goes, oh, you mean like this? And he grabs a piece of scrap paper and just starts drawing it. And I said, how do you do that? How did you just do that? He said, well, you see something in your head, and then you just draw it. And I said, Renee, I could see the most perfect picture in my head, and it will not translate to my hand, from my hand to the paper.
Yeah.
So there are definitely parts of the brain, I think, that people are born with, and those particular areas are just sharper.
Right. It's like someone who sculpts, I would,
right.
I would wind up hurting myself where, somebody could make something so exquisite and so ornate. It's like, how do you do it? I don't know. I just do it.
I could write in my sleep. I mean, I literally could write 10 poems in a half an hour. And they'll be good poems. They'll be decent poems. Because I think in poetry. My thoughts are actually poetic when I think my thoughts. And writing them down is just so easy. I mean, there was a time when we were in rehearsal, and Henry had come up with this riff, and he goes, well, I have this really cool riff, and he starts playing it for the band. And I said, oh, hold on, I'll write the lyrics. And I literally, in 5 minutes, I wrote the lyrics, and that was Weight of the World. And I remember Matt Langone, who was still playing guitar with us at that time, he looked at me like I was possessed by the devil. He goes, I can't believe that you just took out a piece of paper and wrote that song. Evolution, I just sat down one day and said, I just heard something in my head. Let me write it down. And that Evolution is kind of like our anthem. And Evolution came out in 5 minutes. Wow. Words are easy for me, but I can't play an instrument.
Yeah, I'm the opposite. Like, I can look at your words and go, oh yeah, there's the melody, here's the hook, and here's your guitar part, here's your piano. But the words are a challenge for me. So it's good that, there are people like you in the world, and there are people like Henry and myself, because, it's...
There you go.
Yeah, it's the balance of life. Now, we spun your lead single, Endgame, at the top of the show, and Learn to Feel Alive during the Power Trivia segment. I'd like to spin Something to Steal with you on the line, if that's cool. Can you tell me about that one?
Something to Steal is one of the singles that's going to be on our new vinyl album. And that was produced by myself and Henry. We're going to have some tracks on that album that were produced by Pepe Castro from the Blues Magoos.
Right. And
then we had some tracks that were produced by some other people. But we felt it was time for us to go into the studio at that point and produce a couple tracks ourselves, because we had a very specific sound in mind that we really, really wanted to do our own way. And not because we were unhappy with anybody else, just because it was time for us to start pushing our limits a little bit.
Sure.
And creatively. And I was really proud of Something to Steal. And I'm real proud of Henry's input into that song as well. I think that's one of our best tracks. and I was really proud that we produced that.
Well,
It's a very personal song. I wrote that when I was going through one of the hardest times in my life, and it was a really bad time of my life, and so it was a little bit difficult to get in the studio and do it, because every time I would, do a take, and then when I sing, like I said, I go back to that place I was when I wrote it.
sure.
So it was an emotionally challenging song to do, but it was productively a really good challenge, and I think we rose to the occasion for that one.
Well, you built this up. I can't wait to hear this. I'll tell you what, since you're my special guest, I'm going to give you the mic, and you can go ahead and set this one up. Give our listeners the intro. Go for it.
Okay. All right. Well, this is a single that is going to be on our new vinyl LP called Little Devil. It was produced by Henry Cynz and myself, and this is Something to Steal.
This is the Ray Powers Hour. My special guest, lead vocalist of the Cynz, Cyndi Dawson. That was Something to Steal. And that was an amazing cut. I mean, I can hear the emotion in that song, and I can really hear the immersion. And that's a great job. I mean, I love everything you do, but listening to that song, I was able to really just sit back and really just take it all in. That was an amazing track.
Thank you. Thanks. So,
Cyndi, your live show is something that everyone talks about all the time. They flip out their phones now, and everyone's taking video, and it's like, oh, here we go. Here's the show. Is there anything that comes close to the rush of taking the stage at 11 p.m. on a Saturday night with the surge of a packed house propelling you and just, leading you on? Is there anything that even comes close?
Two things come close. I'd say good sex and chocolate cake.
Well, yeah, I guess you could eat cake on stage and not get arrested.
Well, you really can't, because I'll tell you, in all seriousness, I never eat before a show. So depending on what time we go on, if we go on early, like 8:00, that's okay, because you can always get afterwards. You go on late at night, you're so busy by the time you get on stage.
Sure.
But I never eat, because you don't know if you're going to get an upset stomach. You don't know if you're going to get a heartburn.
Right.
You never know what's going to happen with food.
Yeah.
So I think front people really are funny about eating before they go on stage. I don't know how people do it. I would be terrified something could go wrong.
Right. They don't get it. It's just like the guitarist can, wolf down 3 slices of pizza and get through the set. You can't do that.
And they do. And they do. They have a big meal right before they go on. I have to watch them eat.
Right.
And then sometimes if we go on at 11, the kitchen's closed when you get done. So you're out of luck.
Yeah. Or you have to make sure they make you something beforehand. It's like, come on, cover it up for me. I'll be done soon.
Yeah.
But well, you do the show, you crush the place, and then you go home, you retire to your chocolate cake and whatever else there is on the menu for that night.
Ray, you go home and you can't go to sleep. I mean, it's such a rush. When you're on that stage, you have that exchange of energy with people, and they're running up to the front of the stage, and they're dancing, and they're cheering, and I've had this unique experience only this year of people singing the words to our song. That is a really crazy thing, when people know your songs. And you go home and you're so high off that, like you just can't go to sleep. You're so energized from it. It's almost like you're on speed or something like that. You just like you're so hyper from it, and it's a great buzz. But it's a very addicting buzz, and then you want to just kind of keep doing it. And it's not really a good thing to play out too often.
Yeah,
when you play out too often, people don't really feel this need to go to your shows, because they're like, I can catch them next week.
Right. So, exactly. Yeah.
So we try to limit to 1 gig a month, maybe 2 if it's a special opportunity. But boy, do you look forward to doing that again.
Yeah, and I think you're doing it right. Now, Cyndi, I've got to have some fun with you. Anyone who knows you, or even spots you on the street, will acknowledge that you have this uncanny resemblance to Barbara Eden, who still today is gorgeous. And I had a massive crush on her as a kid. I think a lot of people did. You have to have fun with that yourself. You have any cool stories about
yes, I do.
about that?
Well, you should know, first of all, that I have been her for Halloween so many times because it's a no-brainer.
Of course.
But I did a video for a really talented guy called Les July. And Les has played with Slash. He's played with a lot of people out in L.A. And so Les had for years wanted to, he's really into Barbara Eden. And for years was looking for somebody who could play her in his video of a song called the Genie Song.
Oh, wow.
And never really found anybody. So I was at the Delancey one night in New York, and Les was in there. I had never met him before. And I could see this guy staring at me. And he comes over to me, and it turns out, actually, that we have a mutual friend. And so we started to talk about this mutual friend. And he said to me, I'm doing this video, and it's called the Genie Song, and I you've got to play Genie. So he got me the actual costume, and we went down to the beach, and we shot the video, and it's actually on YouTube. It's called the Genie Video by Les July. And the thing is, he showed it to Barbara Eden.
Oh, wow.
And so I said, well, what was her response when she saw the video? And he said, she's okay. She's good. She wasn't like overly, thrilled that somebody was playing her in a video. But she smiled and she said, yeah, she's good.
It's because you look so damn good. And she's looking back and going, oh, well, that was me 30, 40 years ago. But,
Let me tell you, she still looks that good.
Oh,
I saw a picture of her not long ago at the airport. Somebody snapped a picture of her. And everybody looks terrible when they come off the plane.
Right.
And she still looks good. And her body is still rocking. So I say, you know what? If I continue to look like her into old age, then it won't be so bad.
Yeah, bring it on. Exactly. So, Cyndi, your live concert, as we had talked about, is the ultimate proving ground. And you leave your audience absolutely just sated. That's the only word I could possibly use. But you also capture all that energy on your records. Now, do you enjoy making records in the studio? Because you guys leave nothing on the cutting room floor, and every bit of energy goes onto, well, not vinyl anymore, but actually in your case it does, yeah. Do you enjoy that process of making records?
Yes, I love being in the studio. Love it. I actually get so excited just even walking through the door because it's possibilities. You can. Right. I'm not big on using a lot of magic tricks in a studio. I'm really not. I almost like some flaws in our tracks. And if you listen to the early tracks and you listen to the later tracks or sound a bit more like we do live than the early tracks did.
Yeah, it's very
I'm a little bit more confident now in my singing, so I go all out more than I used to. I take more chances. I'm a little bit more intense and not trying to just be safe. You could hear a huge difference between those early tracks from the first CD to the stuff that we've done in the last couple of years. And so because of that, I go into the studio and I just get so excited about what we can actually capture, by recording. I mean, live, you just go out and you do it, Right. You go out and you give it your best shot, and you got one chance to do each song, and if it works, it works, and if it doesn't work so well, I mean, hopefully your energy was still out there and you give everybody a great show. But in the studio, you get to hear, like, wow, you know what, I really didn't let go. I really didn't let go all the way. I can go in there and let me try it again, and this time I'm going to mentally put myself in the right place where I can just go all out. And you push yourself, you're striving and you're pushing, and I think that's what people hear in our tracks in the last couple of years. Yeah,
live, almost everybody has the adrenaline helping them, but yeah, to capture that on a record, you're right. You got to go inside a little bit deeper and just really, really pull it out. And you
really do. You really have to just say, you know what, there's nothing to lose here. You have to forget about people sitting there watching you, sitting down at the control booth watching. You have to forget about, what anybody would think. You literally, it's a mental exercise, and you literally have to just let everything go and just go for it. And to learn to do that and to be able to do that is something that I feel is a real accomplishment. And not everybody could just go in there and do that. So it's something that I feel that this whole band experience has pushed me to learn to do. And so I feel that just as an artist, how much I've grown from that opportunity to learn that.
Yeah, well, the tracks are primal in some cases. I mean, they're raw and they're just vicious. I mean, these tracks are, every single instrument in every part is just, it's alive, and that's what I get from a Cynz record. It's like, wow, this is just, it's not falling victim to Pro Tools. It's not processed. It's just it's almost like being at the concert. It really is.
Yeah, but in fairness, though, when you go into a studio, of course, if you were just recording yourself live, and there's live recordings of us out there that,
Sure.
Everybody with their iPhones and things like that, it's bad sound quality and all that kind of stuff. There's some good live stuff of us out there. Most of it isn't. But in the studio, I like to use as little magic tricks as possible. But as Pepe Castro taught us, recording is forever.
Sure.
When something is recorded, it's forever. You want it to sound really good. So there are times when you want to, maybe copy and paste a chorus that came out really good, but it's not going to get any better. So why even bother doing it over? Little things like that I think are okay.
We all do it.
But what I really kind of like to do is just do a vocal take and just do it and not correct much on it. If something was really bad, it's just a question of correcting, one little note that came out a little bit wrong. I don't mind that, but that's about as far as I want to take it. I like mistakes. I like things that sound raw and sound like you're doing it live.
Absolutely, because things now, especially today, they're so quantized and so sanitized and so perfect and pitch corrected and just completely stripped of any personality or any soul. It's just, it's perfect sounding, but my God, it's like, it's not even, you don't even feel like it's a record anymore.
Right. Yeah. I think the trick in the studio, and it's a fine line, is to make a great recording and use the tools that you have at hand when you absolutely need them, but try not to use them when if you really don't have to.
Right. Exactly.
Nothing has to be perfect. This idea of perfection with technology is, like, to me, it's the antithesis of rock and roll, because bands like the Ramones and Patti Smith and all that, of course they use the tools. Of course that they tried to make the best recordings that they could. Not everybody was technically a great musician, and when they got in the studio, sometimes they even used different musicians on different songs that weren't them. And,
absolutely.
But, that's been done from, since rock and roll began. But I think when you listen to, like, earlier rock and roll, and it's got that great, almost like the Sun recordings, where they just went in and played live and recorded it.
And here it is, yeah.
You can't beat that.
Yeah, you're right. It is a fine line. And certainly, if you use the technology we have today as, like you said, enhancement, and it's like using cover-up to cover a blemish. Don't wear, like, clown makeup. Just,
Right.
It where
That's
it's
a great
needed.
Metaphor. Exactly. So sparingly is what you're trying to say.
Right. Exactly. Use it for the purpose. It's just it's an enhancement. It's not the don't lean on it. You don't live and die by pitch correction or like you said, studio wizardry.
Right.
So
why I've got you here, because I know you'll never bring this up, but I wanted to say to you that one of the things being an indie band that is so important today is radio. And, bands are doing everything on, themselves now, and for the most part. And so when you have a radio show like yours, it's so important what you do, because, you're a musician yourself, you've got your own stuff that you record and release.
Right.
But today, bands without radio don't get heard. I might be able to go to New York and do some shows, and you've got, like, a crowd that hears you. But radio is when the world hears you. And it is just so vital and so important to music today to have radio stations that play indie bands.
Yeah, well, this is something
and
I
just wanted to thank
do.
you for being one of those, indie band cheerleaders, and you're always supporting these bands, and that's something that you should be so well thanked for. And I hope that the bands that you play truly appreciate what it is you're doing.
Yeah, 99.9% do, and it's It's an absolute pleasure and a passion, and I really is. I made an admission statement, and they gave me a radio show, and they basically gave me a lot of leeway, and they said, well, what do you want to do? They kind of assumed it would be a music-based talk show, but I said, yeah, I want to do something that champions indies and gets them to, they're just about ready to hit that next level. Let's get them there. And, we know we're not going to get on Z100. We're not getting on WPLJ. It is not happening without $2 million in your pocket and a whole slew of favors. And you have to be 25, and there's just too many rules. And, there's 99% left over with great things to say that have no place to say it. And you're right. This is where it is. And fortunately, this is a growing media, and it's only going to continue to grow. So eventually, I came from FM radio, and I love FM radio, but I think it's dying very slowly. And just like with the recording industry, they watched it burn and did nothing about it. They watched all these Napster people just kind of take away their livelihoods, and FM radio hasn't learned a thing. But you know what? We're on this side now, so if that's the case, say la vie, and we'll see you later. Yeah. But no, well, I appreciate.
I urge people to support shows like yours because I have a daughter who rock and roll in our day was you went out and if you wanted to see your friends, you went out and you had to go to clubs and you had to go to the bands. The only way to hear your favorite bands was to go out and hear them. And today, everything is online, and you can go online and hear this and hear that. You never have to leave your house to hear the music.
Right.
It's kind of sad, and so I think what happened was a lot of the people in my daughter's generation. She's 20. They really didn't get to hear too much rock and roll unless their parents were playing it at home.
Sure.
And they certainly weren't going out to hear bands unless they got to go to an occasional festival. But now that there's these really good radio stations playing a lot of rock and roll now on the internet, they're being exposed to this music for the first time, really. It's not rap, it's not electronic, it's not, Disney pop parts, it's rock and roll. And the only way they're hearing this is on internet radio shows like yours.
Well,
So thank you.
Well, we're more than happy to do it, and I'm a shameless Cynz fan. I've said that on the air. And, listen, I love almost everybody I spin. And that's just it's the best job in the world when you can do that. But, Cyndi, where are you playing next?
We're playing on the 17th of August at Ethel's Food and Alcohol. It's uptown. I am ashamed to say I don't know the address right now. I hope Linda Rizzo doesn't kill me.
Oh, we'll get
because it's she DJs there, and these are her shows she's putting together. We will be the only band playing that night, so we get to do a nice long set. And then we're playing. I think it's. I wish I had my show schedule in front of me, but we're playing at the Sidewalk as well in August. I think the 26th. I could be wrong, but if you go to Reverb Nation and you go to the Cynz, or just Google the Cynz, C-Y-N-Z, on Google, the first thing that comes up is the Reverb Nation page, and we have a show schedule there. We're also back again in September.
Cool. Hey, I got the address for you. Ethel's Alcohol and Food, 1629 2nd Avenue, Upper East Side.
Boy, you're good. That was fast. Hey, I'm really impressed.
I'm learning from my 7-year-old. I got the whole Google thing down now.
Yeah. Very good.
Hey, we look out for each other. That's what we do here. Cyndi, thank you so much. Cyndi Dawson of the Cynz.
You're very welcome.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
The Ray Powers Hour.
This is the Ray Powers Hour. I am back, and on the line with me, Swedish country music upstart Hicks. Hey, thanks for joining us. How you doing today?
Hey, everything's good over here, and thank you so much for having me. Really enjoyed that. Am I the first Swedish artist you have on your show?
I think you are. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Love that.
Definitely in Sweden. I don't know about Swedish descent, but absolutely the first person who is Swedish-based.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
This show, I've only been doing this show for not even 2 years, 1.5 years. So a lot of Australians, a couple of Canadians, a lot of people from here in the U.S., of course. Very Nashville heavy. Yeah, by far, I think you're the first, maybe the first Northern European. I mean, you've got the whole region.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. I love being the first at everything, you know. I'm the first Swede to do a lot of crazy stuff for country music, because country music isn't that big deal over here. So I have a lot of firsts.
You're a pioneer. Yeah, I'm going to get into that for sure. Well, being that we're on the subject, what is that like being a country artist in Sweden? Obviously, when you think of country music, you think of Nashville. But nowadays, I mean, you know, we have a lot of people coming out of Australia. We have Shania Twain coming out of Canada a long time ago. That's been 20 years now. But Sweden, you know, I think Swedish slick pop. I think Yngwie J. Malmsteen I grew up with ABBA. I grew up with Europe, Ace of Base. Like I said, that very... very slick pop and very good pop music, but you know, this is a first. And I knew your music, but I never really made the connection. I said, yeah, you know, Hicks, Sweden, Nashville, I like it.
Yeah, well, I like it too. I think that's the reason I sound the way I do, that I am not from Nashville, and I don't record everything in Nashville. I record a lot in Stockholm and in Austin and in Nashville, of course, but that mix of things makes the sound Hicks. It sounds me. It doesn't sound like nobody else, I hope.
Right, it's you. It's Hicks, yeah.
Yeah, it's got a trademark. And, I mean, I don't mind the Nashville sound. I love it. Right. But I don't want it.
Well, yeah, you don't want to be the next Johnny Cash, the next whomever. There's been 1,000 of those. And you obviously you're carving your own niche and your own brand, which is what we all want.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I'm pretty good at being me. And
oh, yeah. You're the best me around.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm aiming for. Cool. So, but coming from Sweden and playing country music, I mean, you get a lot of questions from people here. Says, why? Yeah. What's wrong with you? Don't do it. Don't go there. It's just, and that's the bigger reason for me to do it, because there's not a lot of people doing it.
Right. No.
Like I said before, I'm not the first country artist from Sweden, but I think I am the first that's starting to branch out abroad.
Yeah, you're the first. I would call you the first breakout star in Sweden. Now, where are you from in Sweden? Are you from Stockholm?
No, I live in Stockholm now, but I am from the southern part of Sweden, a small town called Helsingborg. I grew up there, and I moved to Stockholm 15, 16 years ago. Okay.
Now, what's the weather like there right now? Because, you know, most of us picture Sweden as predominantly cold. And let's face it, you guys always clean up during the Winter Olympics. So, you know, that's the image you portray.
Yeah, but now we're in the fall, and so all the trees are orange and red, and it's really, really beautiful. And the sun is up today, so... Oh, wow. That's great. We haven't got any snow yet, but I mean, in a week or two, it probably will come.
And I'm guilty of it too. I mean, I'm a diehard Islanders fan for 40 years. Kenny Jansson from Team Sweden, I think they won the gold medal in '94.
Yeah, that's true.
He was a longtime Islander. Tommy Salo was our goalie for a while. Stefan Persson from the Isles Dynasty era, long time. Yeah,
long time ago.
I mean, that was...
Yeah, I mean... We produce some pretty good hockey players in this country. We have a totally different system for both soccer and all our sports. It's not like in the U.S. that you play it in school. In school, you have your gymnastics and athletes and whatnot, but here you join a sort of a fraternity and you play, and it doesn't cost you a fortune to play.
Really? Wow, that's...
Yeah, you have to pay for the gear, of course. Okay. If you're a hockey player. But then the trainers don't get paid. It's usually some of the parents who know enough about hockey that he can be a trainer. And then they get help, they get education. So I think that's why we produce a lot of great hockey players.
Wow. Yeah, and you have the weather which cooperates.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, you speak English very, very well. That's your second language, right?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, did you...
But it's weird because I think in English. My inner conversation is always in English, and I don't know why. My parents are Swedish, but as long as I can remember, I find the words a lot easier in English, and I don't know why.
That's interesting. Okay.
Very.
See, you are a cowboy at heart.
I am. I guess I am. I mean, maybe in some past life I lived in the United States. I don't know.
Yeah, you might have been a rancher or at least a moonshiner in Nashville. Who knows?
Probably.
Now, have you spoken English your whole life? Did you grow up speaking English, or did you pick it up along the way?
I picked it up along the way, but I'm self-taught, so I don't know grammatically why it's right. I just know it's right.
That's interesting.
It is, and my teachers at school hated me because I could never explain why. I was always giving the right answer, because well, you hear it should be like that.
And they had nothing to teach you. That's yeah, that must be frustrating.
Well, they wanted me to speak with a more British accent, and
really?
I just couldn't, because to me it felt unnatural, it felt forced, it just felt wrong. And I always have to tell them that, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yes, good. Mission accomplished. That's why we do this.
Oh, that's interesting. They wanted you to have a more proper London dialect.
Yeah. Or even Oxford. They love that accent.
Gotcha. All right. Now, what's the percentage of Swedes that are fluent in English, would you estimate?
Oh, I would say probably 90%, 95%, because we have it in school.
Oh, okay. So it's a thing there.
Yeah.
Okay. I gotcha.
Yeah, and I think you start already in third grade. So we start pretty early.
Yeah, my daughter is learning Spanish. She's in second grade, and that's a predominant second language here, as you probably know.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's a good age to start.
It is.
Well, now you probably hear this a lot, but you don't sing with much of an accent, as with a lot of the people in the UK and Australia. You know, when you sing, it sounds like American rock or American country.
Yeah, and I think that's when you're into music, you pick up the melody of the language. And I'm not sure if that's the truth, but I think it's something like that.
It sounds good.
Yeah, I don't know, but it's my amateur theory of why.
Yeah, I mean,
and to me, it's important, if you are going to sing in another language, have respect to learn the language.
That's a good point.
Yeah, because we have a lot of Swedish artists. They sing in English, but you can hear that they come from Sweden because they have their Swedish accent and melody, just like I said now. So you can totally hear that, oh, he's from Sweden. And you can tell with some guys that what part of Sweden they come from, because they have the Swedish accent mixed in with the English. So to me, I mean, they can sing and sound however they want to, but to me it gets a little, oh yeah, why don't you sing in Swedish? It sounds Swedish.
Yeah. Another Swedish pop star on the way. Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah.
I hear you. Roxette's from Sweden too, right?
Yeah, they are.
Okay, I thought so. I knew of them along the way, but I was more of a metalhead growing up. So I mean, I was cognizant, but to me it was Europe and Malmsteen.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, you like the Swedes?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I hear the accent too, but with you it's very subtle. I have to listen, you know. Whereas like
thank you.
Whereas like Klaus Meine of the Scorpions, I mean, my God, you can't get more Teutonic than Klaus.
No,
he embraces it.
He does, and I think I don't know why, but with him, I think it's kind of cool.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's his brand.
Exactly.
And it's metal, so it's like it's only going to add to the mystique.
Yeah.
It just makes it that much more like Teutonic and powerful. It's like, here comes the machine.
Yeah. So, what's your favorite band?
My favorite band of all time? God, that's hard. I'm a New Yorker. I've got to go with the Ramones.
Oh, yeah, cool.
I was actually in a Ramones tribute growing up. I used to be real tall and thin, and I used to have hair. Now I'm not thin, and I don't have my hair anymore, so...
So there goes Ramones.
Yeah, well... It's a stretch. I've got to wear a lot of tight black clothing and a wig if I still do it, and hide the facial hair. But that was a lot of fun growing up. I'm a big Kiss fan. I love Def Leppard, Led Zeppelin. I love Johnny Cash, the older stuff. As a career bassist, I get to back a lot of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame acts my dad grew up listening to, the Skyliners, the Drifters, people like that. it's a pretty diverse list, but my go-to stuff, 80s hard rock.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like me, because I got one foot in country and one foot in 80s melodic rock.
Yeah.
I love that. Like you, I'm a Def Leppard fan, so.
Yeah, it was definitely the hotbed growing up, and that's what really infected me. Van Halen and Billy Squier. Queen was a huge. That was my first concert ever.
Okay.
Madison Square Garden. I did it right.
Yeah.
But
cool.
Now you made a trip to Nashville, and you talk about this trip. Is that what cemented your love of country music, or did you make the pilgrimage to Nashville because of your love for country music, with the goal of, I would say, making a mark there?
Yeah, well, first time I went out to Nashville, it was as a songwriter, because I started out being an artist, and then I leaned more and more into songwriting, and I started writing for a lot of good artists around the world, mostly Americans. And I went to Nashville because I've always been writing country songs. And I got to know a guy, his name is Ronnie Thomas, and I thought, well, if I play my country songs for him, maybe we can pitch those songs to some of the artists he's working with. And he worked with Brooks and Dunn, Reba, Alan Jackson,
right,
all the big names. And he listened to the songs, and he told me, nah, we're not going to pitch those songs to anybody. And I was like, whoa, are they that bad? And he said, no, they're not. You're going to do them yourself.
He wants to save it for you. Right.
Yeah, but I'm not an artist anymore. I'm a writer. I love being a writer. Well, but you still have it. I can hear that in your voice, and you have a sound there that it's going to work. Trust me, it's going to work.
And
so I thought about it for a while, and then I went back to Sweden, and let's try. So I recorded those songs, and I made a video and put that video up on YouTube. That was Mama's Kitchen, just to see what kind of response I would get. And I got a response. Holy hell.
Oh, you sure did.
There was DJs from all around the world started mailing me, and they wanted to song, and it wound up on charts I didn't know existed. And
isn't that great?
Yeah, and then it snowballed from there. It's just like, wow. And I can say now it has taken a life of its own. I'm not driving here. I'm in the back seat just riding along.
Yeah, well, that's why I wanted to play Mama's Kitchen at the very top of the hour. And I'd like to play a song right now that's making some noise, literally. It's called Stomp a Little Louder. And if you're not familiar with it right now, and I'm talking, of course, to the listeners, you're about to be. And why don't you talk a little bit about this before we play it?
Yeah, Stomp a Little Louder. That is such a dream come true for me, because I co-wrote it with Steve Wariner.
Wow.
And Steve Wariner is one of my musical heroes in country music. His guitar playing, his singing, his songwriting, it's just off the hook. I have all his albums here, and I've listened to him a lot. And I met him in London when we played at the British CMA. And I played just before him. And when I walked off stage, he walked up to me and gave me his card and said, if you're ever in Nashville, call me. I want to write with you. And I was blown away.
That's pretty surreal.
Yeah, it is. And when I got back to Sweden, I just packed my bags and went to Nashville and called them, say, hey, I'm in town. Hey, you want to write? And we both. And actually, Stomp a Little Louder is one of the songs that came out of that first writing session.
Wow. So you knew right away, like, we have something here.
Oh, yeah, we just knew.
That's awesome. Well, let's spin this for everybody. Why don't you go ahead and give this the proper Hicks intro, and we'll go ahead and give this to the world.
Yeah, sure. Well, this is Hicks with Stomp a Little Louder and Play It Loud.
This is the Ray Powers Hour. I am on the line with Hicks from Sweden. We just heard his current single, Stomp a Little Louder. And man, I was stomping along with the record. It's a good thing I had the mic down.
Yeah, it's cool. And you know what? What is even cooler is that Steve Wariner and his son Ryan are playing the guitars on the track.
Are they really?
Oh, yeah, they are. So, it doesn't get any better than that.
No, when you can work with your heroes and and then it becomes a reality, and then it's a record, and now it's on the radio. It's like that is, I mean, that's the full culmination. It's like the only place to go from there is to do it again.
Exactly. And we actually have a lot more songs because we wrote a lot of songs, me and Steve together, and they're all great. So I'm in a very good position about picking the next single.
Wow, that's awesome. And now you write songs, and of course collaborating with Steve is a dream come true. You've also worked with a lot of other high-profile songwriters, Jorgen Ellefson being one of them.
Yeah.
He's, of course, written huge hits for Britney Spears, Kelly Clarkson. His resume is tremendous. What was that like? What is it like?
It's always great to write with guys like that who have that track record, because they have something in them that when you write with them, they think so out of the box all the time.
Right.
That when you've written a song and the song is, if it's too comfortable, even if it's good, so no, it's not there yet. And he came up with some twists in the song that was just like, wow, I never would have thought of that, and that's really cool. And that's what I love, writing with guys like that.
Yeah, we call them songsmiths here in America, and that's basically, that's what they'll do, is they'll push you to, all right, you got the 1-4-5 down, but let's see what we could do with this. Like you said, twist the bridge a little bit, or
exactly,
something that really makes the song pop and go, wow, this guy is a pro, and it's they push you to your limit and past it, and they make you better.
Exactly. Same thing when you are recording with guys like that. They got that. They know what they're looking for, and they really pull that out of you. So you sing on the top of your ability, and I love that.
Absolutely. Now, you sing, you play guitar as well. Do you play any other instruments as well?
Well, I started out being a bass player. I always loved playing bass for some reason. I love the groove. I love music that grooves.
Okay, you're now officially my favorite. I knew you were cooler than the rest. I'm only kidding, people.
Yeah. Well, you play bass yourself, and there's something about that. And when I started playing bass, I understood that, well, if me and the drummer, we're going to make this song groove, so I better learn how to play drums, so I know what he's doing and why he's doing it. So I taught myself. I locked myself in the studio and just learned how to play drums, because I want to be a better bass player.
Right. I've done that in a rudimentary fashion as well. I never got to own drums because I lived in an apartment in New York City growing up, so that wasn't going to work. But, my neighbors would have lynched me. But, and of course, we couldn't afford the old Cynz drums, the octagon, and I thought those were hideous anyway. I hated those. Those old school electronic drums. Now they're so much better, and now you don't even need drums with Pro Tools. I'd still prefer them on the records, but absolutely. What drew me to the bass was the fact that when you're walking to a concert at a festival, you felt the bass along the ground miles before you got there.
Yep.
And you could feel it, and then doing a sound check, working with some of these bigger artists, and shaking an arena, you have the ability to shake the entire building.
Yep.
And you know what that feels like with a bass guitar in your hands. It's empowering.
Totally. Yeah, there's power in it, and I mean, as a good bass player can just lift a concert. As the same thing with a bad bass player, just can kill it.
You're right. Absolutely, a drummer can do that. A bassist can do that. People don't realize how much of a foundation that we lay. Literally, it's if you start with a poor rhythm section, the rest of it's going to be uphill. Maybe a good singer can carry it for a while, but with a great rhythm section, the rest is going to be so much easier. And
oh yeah. The songs play themselves if you have guys that know what they're doing.
You're right. Guys that have a pocket, they don't play too fast, they understand dynamics. You're right.
Yep.
It makes the show. And so you and I get it. We have to teach the world this now.
Well, and I love bass players that dares to hang on the notes. You know what I mean? That when you said doesn't play too fast, that they are just that semi-second, just hanging a little bit longer, and it's just like, love that.
Yeah, extend the pocket.
Exactly. It's just like, wow. And I think there's that's a part where the sex come into music. Because I think music play like that is a lot more sexier than just when you play it straight.
Right. Well, once the girls start moving, the guys are in the party too, and now you have everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
If the girls aren't wiggling, the party's over.
True.
We know this. I mean, I don't know about you, but musical integrity was probably the last factor that got me into music. It was, the girls like this, and there's a couple of bucks to be made, and hey. If there's musical aptitude on the table too, great.
Yeah. I mean, everybody started playing because they want girls. I mean,
of course.
That's the truth. Of course. But then when you are up on stage and you have a crowd that's singing back to you and singing back to you a song that you wrote yourself, then it becomes something else.
Yeah, that's almost spiritual. That's insane.
Yeah.
You're right. Well, Hicks, I mean, I could do this for hours, but we only have an hour show. Why don't you tell everybody where to get the new music? How do we find Hicks?
Well, you find me on hickscountry.com. That's my webpage, and there are links to all my social media there, Facebook, Twitter, whatnot, iTunes, YouTube, everything. So hickscountry.com. But it's very easy because YouTube, it's Hicks Country. Facebook, Hicks Country. Hicks Country all the way.
I do it with the Ray Powers era. You have to make it easy, make it consistent.
Yeah.
I agree. Hey, listen, next time you're in the States, please hit me up. We'll do this in person. And
I'd love to.
If I'm in Sweden, I'll do the same.
Yeah, please do. And I'm going to hook you up with all the writers you like over here. So.
Oh, man, I would be indebted forever. I would have to
cool.
give you one of my basses or something.
Oh, cool.
And I'm a precision guy. You'll like my collection.
Oh, cool. I had Fender Jazz.
Oh, nice.
That's we have that in the studio, and I have an Ibanez, a 5-string one as well.
I've got a Yamaha 5-string. See, we've got a synergy going. I knew. See,
there's something going on here. Let's make a bass record.
That's it. Hicks Powers, the 2017 tour, Conquer the World. Shake the world. Cool. There it is.
Shake, yeah.
Well, Hicks, like I said, man, anytime, come back on, call in, write in. It's all yours. I'm happy to have you.
Thank you so much. I sure will.
All right. Well, you have a great week and rock on. Let's.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Anytime. My pleasure. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
The Ray Powers Hour.